Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Texas 4000 2020 Summer Ride Cancer Awareness and Prevention Program. We're so glad you're here today. We have a wonderful guest and members of our 2020 team here joining us to answer some questions and spread some awareness about cancer treatment and prevention. I'd like to first introduce our writers that are writing here with us today. If we can get them up on screen, I'll let them introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about themselves. Hey, Peyton. Hey, Davica.
Hi.
Hi.
Hey.
Okay. Hey, Ray, why don't we start with you and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sounds good. So my name is Ray Kitziger. I am a Sierra writer on the 2020 team. And as I think Dr. Moore has noticed, I'm wearing a City of New Orleans shirt because that is my hometown. I'm really excited to talk to Dr. Moore and a surgeon at Ochsner. And yeah, I'm excited to get going tonight.
Davica, why don't we go to you next?
Sure. My name is Devika Raju, and I'm a 2020 Rockies writer. So if it weren't for this being virtual, I wouldn't have gotten to meet anyone from Ochsner, so I'm very excited to be here.
My name's Peyton Love. I'm a 2020 Ozarks writer, and I am on the route that actually does get to go through New Orleans and meet Ochsner, so I'm really glad that we're able to do that virtually this year.
Great, thank you all so much. Now I would like to introduce our special guest for the afternoon. Today we have Dr. Brian Moore from Ochsner Health with us. Ochsner is one of our partners in New Orleans. We look forward to traveling to see them every year. They are also one of our grant recipients. And we wanted to bring on Dr. Moore today to talk about cancer awareness and his role at Ochsner, and also his redeployment to help with COVID patients, as New Orleans was a hotspot this year. Welcome, Dr. Moore.
Thank you guys for having me. Everybody can hear me okay?
Yeah, it's great.
Okay. I had to move upstairs because the kids are having a play date, and the other mom is coming to pick one of the kids up, and you hear the dog. So
no worries. This is our new normal for sure.
Oh, that's fine. It triggered Dee's dog. So, anyway, Shannon and Scott, thanks for inviting me to participate. I know Dee McCloskey, one of our great philanthropy partners, is on board here and has some prepared comments for you guys. Ray, I'm curious if your dad is our veterinarian. Is that quite possible, or maybe an uncle? Or
yes, sir. My uncle Eric. My uncle Eric is we call him Bubba Eric. He's a vet at a Hickory Knoll. Yeah. My dad was an orthopedic surgeon in New Orleans until the storm in 2005.
Yeah. Neat. It's a small town, even though it's a big city. So, but I'm grateful. The Ochsner Cancer Institute is terrifically grateful for your all's support, and over the years, I think we've developed a really good relationship, and the funds that you raise truly do some terrific things for our patients. Just real quick, I think I'm stealing Dee's introductory thunder here, but all that money that you raise goes to our patient assistance fund, which is a huge benefit to our patients that are going through cancer therapy. I mean, as you can imagine, it's a huge disruptor for life, creates significant financial stress, and this allows them to take care of some of the necessary bills and the things that exist, kind of helps them continue their life outside of being a patient. So thanks for all that you guys are doing this year, and thanks to Texas 4000 for everything you guys have done over the years.
Thank you so much, Dr. Moore. So Dee, I was staring at the camera and I was remiss not welcoming you to our live stream. I really appreciate you being here as well today. And I guess we'll kick things off with you. I know you have a few prepared remarks, and we'd love to hear them.
Sure. Thank you. And it is it's very fitting that Ripple, my dog, joined in our presentation today. But for the last few years, he has greeted the Ozarks riders when they've come to New Orleans and has been a part of their visit. So I'm glad he had his moment in the sun with Texas 4000 this year. Usually greets the riders and then is with me when we send them off on the levee on the last day. We just wanted to say thank you so much. We are such just a grateful partner of Texas 4000. We are amazed by everything that you do. As Dr. Moore said, you do a tremendous deal for our patients through the Patient Assistance Fund, but really even more from the inspiration that you give across the country and to our folks just by your commitment. And I told the Ozarks riders when we visited earlier this week, I think the only thing harder than riding 4,000 miles to Anchorage is probably not riding 4,000 miles to Anchorage. So I thank you for your courage this year in making what I'm sure were some hard decisions. And we're so glad that you're having a virtual visit and including us in that. We've had an interesting couple of months down here in New Orleans. As you know, we've been a hotspot for COVID. I don't know, Shannon, did you get the slides that I sent over?
We sure did. Yep, there you go.
I just wanted to share just a few images. It's been a strange time, but it's been kind of an exciting time. I think we're great in a crisis. Everyone fights to go to yes. Here in Louisiana, Ochsner led the way by over a third of the tests across the entire state that have been done by Ochsner, and over 60% of the hospitalized patients in New Orleans, which has been a hotspot, have been in our hospitals. So the people you see on the screen have just been incredible. If we could go to the next slide, there's just a few images of just the great way the community has come across and the spirit. We've really relied. That's Thomas Morstead, one of our saints. Our local football and basketball teams have been great partners with us, supporting our healthcare heroes every step of the way. We appreciate them so much. My next slide, I think, is a picture, just a few of our folks, Ochsner Strong, making a great stand. We're all so proud of the people at Ochsner. I think the next picture is a picture of our cancer center. And Dr. Moore's probably going to share a little bit about that, but I wanted you to have a visual. And what you see in the center is some of the Ozarks riders in 2018 in front of what was just a construction site with a crane in it. And this year we're actually going to be opening that expansion of our cancer center. And you all have been a part of that every year, watching the expansion come out of the ground. It's going to be an incredible place that expands our areas for healing, has an integrative therapies program, which is really taking care of the whole patient, the whole person, and offers great vistas out over the Mississippi River. And then finally, just our closing slide. It's just that we have been proud to be a part of the ride. We found out, I think the second year you all came to visit, that your founder, Chris Condit, was actually treated by our Troy Stroggins, who's the head of our radiation oncology. So we had a long history with you even before we knew it. We're just very proud to be a part of Texas 4000. We're proud to have given the service to our state that we've given these last few months. It has been a hard time for Louisiana. And in many ways, it's perhaps fitting that we had so many things in place before COVID that helped us weather through it. And I think Dr. Moore might touch on some of them, things like our telehealth and virtual health programs that helped take care of people when they couldn't come in to the centers. And perhaps fortuitously, in February, we named our first chief diversity officer for our organization to really help our organization in a very organized and purposeful way look at diversity inside our walls and at health disparities outside our walls. And of course, COVID has highlighted health disparities in a way that are heartbreaking. And that timing, especially given all the things that are going on in our country over the last few weeks, just tells me that we're on the right track to be a part of healing and solutions. And I'm very proud that that's who we are as an organization. And I'm proud to be your partners. And I'm going to be quiet and let y'all ask Dr. Moore all sorts of tough questions.
Great, Dee, thank you so much. Thank you for being grateful and being such a wonderful partner for us, but we are just as grateful for you and all the work that Ochsner does. So thank you so much. So I'll have you stay on just in case we need a few couple like tidbits. But yeah, we're gonna start up with Dr. Moore. So first, easy one, Dr. Moore, tell us a little bit about yourself and your history and how you you got to New Orleans.
So I'm a head and neck cancer surgeon by training. So my background is ENT. I had gone to college and med school at Tulane. And so the reason that I'm in New Orleans is because I could hit a yellow ball within a rectangle and do so better than a fair number of people when I was growing up. So I came and played tennis at Tulane and then stayed for med school. I happened to meet my wife while I was in undergrad. As you, I'm upstairs, and you got to hang the wedding portrait somewhere. So she's here with us right there. But she's from New Orleans and is of New Orleans. Her family and Ray's uncle have known each other for many, many years. And it became apparent when I was training at Vanderbilt and then at MD Anderson that if I didn't find a job in New Orleans, that I would be spending most of my weekends in New Orleans. And so I'm fundamentally lazy. And so I would like to be at home on the weekend. So thankfully I started working at Ochsner when I was still in the Air Force. I had an Air Force commitment after all of my training, and I would come over, cover some call, help out, get to know people. That when I got here 9 years ago, I already knew everybody, and it was an easy transition. And so, we worked to build a head and neck cancer program, and then we needed some help for the broader cancer program, I guess now about 3 years ago. And they asked for volunteers, and everybody else stepped back, and I was still standing there. And so they ended up asking me to be the medical director of the program, and it's been a fantastic experience for me, because I have always been proud to work at Ochsner. I mean, obviously, as a former military person, I mean, I am mission and vision driven to a certain degree, but I have never been prouder to work at Ochsner than I have over the last 3 months. Our ability to, as an organization, respond appropriately, calmly, quickly, to keep in the order that we described our patients, our teams, and our communities safe, and to keep them healthy, really drove everything that we did. And I've been here at Ochsner over a period where we've grown exponentially. We were 3 hospitals and then small clinics in Baton Rouge and on the North Shore of Lake Pontchartrain, but now we're a large health system, and we're responsible for the care of the majority of the patients in the state of Louisiana. So when I look at rankings, or disease order lists, or whatever you want to call them, that come from the American Cancer Society, that say that, cancer outcomes in Louisiana are we have the 46th highest incident, or 46th highest incidence of cancer. So only 3 or 4 states are worse than us. And we're ranked 46th in cancer outcomes. That's my problem, right? That's not somebody else's problem to fix. That's our problem to fix. And so we've started over the last couple of years to lean in and try to help fix that. We've always done a good job taking care of the patients that could get to us. But all states, actually, our country has problems with access to healthcare. And it's our responsibility to fix that. So I've really enjoyed that part. And then I think the thing with COVID is we all take care of each other, and the group had gone through recovery from Katrina, where everyone had to lean in and help each other. And I think we have that in our DNA. But we knew that our hospital doctors and our internal medicine doctors were quickly getting overwhelmed with all the patients that were coming in, and they needed help. And so they sent out one quick ask for who wants to help, and they were who wants to go do shifts in the ICU, shifts on hospital medicine wards. And I did critical care during my residency, but I'm 20 years out of training. But I take care of sick people, and I'm accustomed, to that. But there were more volunteers than there were shifts available. So there's 1,500 employed physicians in the group practice, and everybody that could volunteer. I mean, I have partners that are in their 70s that still see patients and are active, that were mad that I wouldn't let them go work shifts in the unit. Like, just didn't. And I'm like, but you're the people we're trying to protect, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that was truly amazing. And then to actually go do those shifts. And this was the ENT group that I'm a part of. It was the cancer doctors, it's cardiologists. I mean, it's everyone that you can think of. My trusted partner, who was the chair of medical oncology, Dr. Larned, she was doing shifts in one of the units. But when we go there, the beauty of it is that we're also with people who have leaned in and volunteered. So the nurse anesthetists that helped me do my cases are now taking care of the patients, and we're together figuring things out. It was truly an example of everyone helping each other do the right thing, for patients. It was a little weird doing shifts again, but something I'm proud of. I'm proud that we all did, and I'm very proud of the response of the group.
It's amazing. You guys should be proud. I know just you guys getting hit so hard so early, a lot wasn't known. So we are very grateful that you stepped up to help your community. Kind of along that lines, what is it like now with this pandemic going on, layering that on top of cancer treatment? Like how are cancer physicians handling that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the one thing not to forget is that cancer care didn't stop during this. And so our patients that had been diagnosed with cancer, that were getting treated for cancer, still needed their radiation. They still needed their chemotherapy infusions. And in certain settings, they still needed their surgery. So the great situation that we're in with the fund and knowledge we have for cancer care right now is there are multiple options. So if someone was going to have surgery and surgery didn't seem feasible because of OR availability and all that, there were many times that we could transition patients to either hormonal therapy for, say, early stage breast cancer or prostate cancers, or a different kind of therapy entirely, like switching to radiation for some of our head and neck patients instead of doing surgery, without a chance of altering survival. I mean, we have the armamentarium that we have in some cases allows us to gauge and recommend treatments based on the side effect profile and the patient's individual wishes or situation, and without sacrificing their ultimate outcome. And so we were able to kind of leverage that flexibility and follow national guidelines. Some of the specialty societies leaned in very early, like the American College of Surgeons really led the way in this and said, this is what we should consider for breast cancer patients. And so you can adhere to, to those guidelines. But there's some other aspects of cancer care in this that the specialty societies and the national organizations were lagging behind. Like they would come out with a position paper 3 weeks after we'd already had to institute a policy. And so, thanks again to the I guess the power of Ochsner, we started doing in-house testing probably 2 or 3 weeks into our experience with the pandemic. And so we were able to get tests on, do COVID testing on cancer patients before, many other places in the country. And so we outlined a policy, and then it's funny, 7 weeks later, the American Society for Clinical Oncology presents their statement, which kind of, I don't want to say mirrored ours, but certainly reflected ours. But we had to, craft this on our own. We've done, so in addition to just the testing and making some changes in treatment strategies, we have a foundation of telehealth. And it's funny, last year in strategic planning, I'm sitting in front of the CEO and you say, we're going to start doing some more telehealth visits and try to find some programs that we can transition to, to virtual visits to keep patients at home. And we listed, there's probably 9 or 10 things on there. And I don't think I'm ever going to be able to do this again, but like an entire slide of my strategic plan is now checked off because we, within a few weeks, had transitioned completely to virtual visits, allowing patients to stay home. We could establish relationships with them, go through treatment plans. If they crowd enough people on the screen, you could talk to whole families and discuss, prognosis and options. It really has, we thought it would revolutionize cancer care, but I think now everyone understands that it has. And our group has done, at this point, probably over 11,000 virtual visits, more in cancer than in any other medical specialty, and about even with primary care. I mean, and I've used it as a surgeon to meet patients from Lake Charles, from Jackson, Mississippi, and even across town in New Orleans, to talk to them about their options. We're able to review their scans online, and actually sign people up for surgery without them ever having to come in and go through the formalities of being examined. I wonder who's coming to the house now. We were 100% virtual, or probably 90% virtual for a few weeks, but now we're seeing a downward trend as more people are coming back to the clinic. And so I think it's going to end up being, though, about 30% of our practice, moving forward. And there's some things that we've done traditionally that don't make sense now to bring someone in just for that. So I think having that backbone really helped. We also have, and Dee alluded to this, some digital programs where we can communicate with patients on their smartphone, send them text message reminders, encouragement, things along that line, and then leverage some digital devices in the house. So scales, thermometers, and even a Fitbit to monitor, their activity. And we've been, again, dabbling with this sort of stuff. Like, we had the technical infrastructure, but we hadn't gone full tilt with it. And now we have.
Yeah, that's so fascinating. I think talking to some of our other partners, telemedicine used to be kind of a nice to have in the next few years, but very quickly became very necessary. So that's so fascinating to hear how you guys transitioned. So I have 2 more questions for you, and then I'm going to open it up to our writers and our Facebook comments. You briefly mentioned the Patient Assistance Fund. For those watching that don't know, for the past few years, we have granted to Ochsner's Patient Assistance Fund, which helps with a range of non-medical cancer help. And I just wanted to ask you a little bit more about that. And Dee, you can jump in too if you have something to add about how that helps and how that helps your specific community in New Orleans. I know that with the loss of employment, especially in the hospitality industry in the last few months, that more people than ever are needing that fund. So I was wondering if you could speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, this is a tremendous benefit to our patients, and it's going to be even more important for the next year, really in the foreseeable future, because of the exact same thing that you mentioned. People are out of work. Many of them are losing insurance or being transitioned to Medicaid, and so there has always been the fancy term is financial toxicity. But there's always been financial toxicity in cancer care because either the patients don't, they just don't feel like going to work, or they also have family members that need to bring them and be with them and support them. And so, life and the demands of life go on. And so this Patient Assistance Fund can help people pay their rent, pay their mortgage, pay their utilities, pay for some transportation. We have some arrangements with Lyft to provide transportation for many of our patients, but this helps in all those other attributes of life that you just take for granted. And so we give grants up to about $1,000 at a time, but if there are certain situations that certain patients that need more for their given situation, we've always done that too. Dee, I'm open for any additional thoughts on this.
No, you get an A+.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And we use those patient assistance funds all the time. We were the first hospital in Louisiana to have certified oncology certified social workers many years ago. And so our social work team is fantastic, and they get to know our patients and get to understand their needs. And they use all the other resources that are available in the community. So we make sure that we use all of the other resources that are available to patients, but we encourage them to benefit from that patient assistance fund whenever it can help. And as Ochsner, for many specialties, and especially when it gets to novel therapies and so forth, is the only option that some of our patients have between Houston and Birmingham. And so we've got folks from all over Louisiana and Mississippi who travel to us for care. So they're leaving home maybe for a couple of days, they're driving a long way, they're leaving work, they might have to stay overnight here. And so it is tremendous, the need that goes along with cancer. Even if you didn't head into your cancer diagnosis as someone who thought you needed financial assistance, it's quite possible that somewhere along the line you're going to need that kind of help. And if you entered your cancer diagnosis already in financial need, you will absolutely need to benefit from some financial assistance. So I'm so grateful to the riders over the years who've helped us do that, who've given our social workers that tool and that resource to help families, because it gets used regularly.
Thanks, Dee. So final question. We obviously have a lot of riders that are interested in careers in medicine and health, med school, and I just wanted to see if you had any words of advice for them as they embark on their medical career.
Wow. I think I would say enjoy every day. I don't want to sound like an old man here, but I went through, I think, profound change in medical school. It changed my worldview, and I would say it changed my personal view as well. I mean, I come from a pretty small town in Kentucky, and you don't see a lot. You don't meet a lot of different people. You don't, certainly meet folks with diverse interests, and you also can get that little, big fish in a small pond sort of thing. And so then by going through this process, you learn where you really fit in. You learn about people, learn to respect people. I mean, it's maybe the lessons that that are learned in medical school in the 90s are different. I think kind of the extra mural lessons are different than the ones that are learned in the the 2020s. But it's really a time to grow, and the friendships that you make because of the shared experience, last forever. I mean, my best friends in the world are the ones I made in medical school. But I think you just have to keep your eyes open. You may come in thinking that you want to be one kind of physician and do one thing and then end up doing something different. I mean, I'm a little bit of a living example of that. I did come in to medical school thinking I wanted to be an ENT doctor because my dad was an ENT doctor. And that's really all I knew. I told him at one point I thought I wanted to be a general surgeon. He said, well, if you want to take the easy way out, that'd be fine. But I never dreamed, never planned that I would be doing what I do now. Most of what I do is sort of, it's business. It's a little bit of politics, but it's business, it's population health. It's different from what I learned. And so if you look at it as a place to come get the basic tools that you can then kind of pick and choose, like the additional building blocks for your career, it's terrific. So that's really enjoy every day and make the most of it.
Thank you so much for that. So I would just like to open this up to our writers that are on with us today, see if they have any questions and see if our Facebook comments and YouTube comments have any questions for Dr. Moore.
I have a question, if I can go ahead and go. First, I just want to say thank y'all for being here and for sharing everything that you guys do. I think it's really uplifting for us to be able to hear all of the amazing work that y'all are doing. So thank you for that. My question is just kind of going back to how you mentioned that you kind of see just addressing the cancer incident rates and outcome rates is kind of like your responsibility. So I was wondering if you could go in a little bit more detail of how you feel like you've done that in the past couple of years.
Yeah, so I would say quite candidly that we're really just getting started in the doing. We've been doing a lot of the talking and planning. But the biggest determinant in my view of cancer outcome is how early you find it. And so, we have poor access in the state of Louisiana for colonoscopy. Our screening mammography rates across the state are not where they need to be. This is, so in the early detection of cancer is really one area where Ochsner has done. But that kind of lives in our pop health and our primary care realms more so than my realm in actual cancer care. But we started really holding our primary care doctors accountable for best in class rates of the patients that they care for, so that that our rates are better than national averages, way better than state averages, and almost best in class in all the screening parameters. Another program we started, I guess it was last year, where if you came in to see an ENT doctor for a stuffy nose, the receptionist and the medical assistant putting you in the room could see on your chart that you were overdue for a screening, and they could just go ahead and book you an appointment for that, like right in that moment. It didn't have to, say, well, why don't you call your doctor? We could just take care of that for you. I think, more broadly, we're a leading organization in an entity called TACKLE, which is taking aim at cancer in Louisiana, which was set up by our last Secretary of Health, Rebecca Gee. And this program is looking at a couple of things. Number one, it's trying to improve access to colonoscopy and colon cancer screening rates across the state. And the second piece is to improve guideline adherence in breast cancer treatment. I mean, you would think that with all the knowledge that's out there, that following national guidelines in treating really any disease would be given on proof. But the fact remains that there are a lot of places across the country, a lot of doctors and healthcare systems that really just kind of do. And if and they're not necessarily following the guidelines. And it's funny, by simply doing what you're supposed to do, the outcomes get better. And so this entity is trying to hold other entities in the state accountable for the way that they care for cancer patients. And we're also trying to really get in the community, leveraging community health workers and our network really on the pop health side to improve awareness, education, take away the stigma of some of this, and actually make things easier. It's easy to fall into an ivory tower mindset that only a colonoscopy counts for colon cancer screening. But there are some kits that you can actually give to patients and they can mail back in that provide a tiered approach. And then if you look at one of our communities in Baton Rouge, we started with our impaneled patients in Baton Rouge, a genomic testing algorithm where I forget what the entry criteria are, but we're basically doing blood tests on folks and identifying if you're at high risk for breast cancer, ovarian cancer, and colon cancer, and then tracking those patients to higher intensity screening protocols. And so, I think we've started it really with the screening. I think the rest of it comes into how we treat cancer. And so we are really trying to drive guideline adherence. And because we have some of the thought leaders in the field, our guys need to help the nation develop and continually iterate these treatment guidelines. We also have a program that you guys have heard about in the past called the Precision Cancer Therapies program, led by Dr. Mark Matrana, which is really the only phase 1 drug development program of its kind in the region. And so kind of the newest cutting edge things, like we're trying to offer new treatments to patients. But to get to the big pop health question, got to catch it early.
Thank you. So I think we have a Facebook question next. This is from another one of our 2020 writers, Mahir. What do you feel are the key drivers for improving outcomes around Louisiana that a big health system like Ochsner can change and affect?
So the simple answer to this one is access. And so if we have appointments, have community centers, your health centers that are close to you, and appointments when you can get there, it's not about us. I mean, healthcare has always been about, well, the doctor is in, right? And the doctor is in from 8 to noon and 1 to 4, except on Friday when he or she is somewhere else, right? And so if we are available really all the time through whatever modality, so if you improve access, that will help. But one thing where our organization has really leaned in over the last year or so is how can we help the communities, right? So there are a multitude of reasons that go into developing cancer. I mean, I refer to it in conversations with patients as a toxic gumbo. And so for someone, it's a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Some of it is diet, obesity, access to healthy food, where you live, pollution, and that sort of thing. And so, we're trying to improve the health of our communities. And I think, but that's a 20-year play for improving cancer outcomes. So if you make it easier for people in your communities to get access to good food, if you provide places for them and to walk, to exercise, if you preach health, I think, and you provide those avenues and make it easy, I think we'll, in a generation, we can be there.
This is another one of our writers, Alex. What can we do as writers and citizens to improve accessibility to screening and cancer care?
I think it's awareness. And every major disease that has a big ad campaign, there's always like the famous person with it. It took Michael Douglas for head and neck cancer to get any kind of play, a few years ago. But it's awareness. There are many cancers that are preventable. And you're referencing Michael Douglas, he suffered from an HPV-related tonsil cancer. And so we have vaccines for that. There are 4 or 5 different cancers that are preventable, or that are caused by HPV, depending on how you want to flesh out tonsil and tongue base. But simple vaccination of really, the vaccination is approved up to age 45 now, but it's a 3-shot regimen. That that helps. I'm trying to think beyond that. I mean, that's a very deep question, and I'm not the deepest human being. I think it's let's see. And I think to improve cancer care, I think you have to, hold your communities and the providers in your community to the fire, in that. What are my options? Make sure you know your options if you were to get diagnosed with cancer, because, this is more of a personal thing. How can you improve it for yourself? But cancer is a team sport. Cancer care is a team sport. And so oftentimes in communities, if you see a surgeon, you'll get surgery, and you may in reality not have needed it. If you see a radiation doctor, same sort of thing. And so I think seeking out team care, and asking for other opinions.
Thank you. So I think we have time for about 2 more questions. So this is also one of our 2020 writers, Sophie. Post-coronavirus, what are you most excited about with regards to the future of at-home health? And on the other hand, what aspects of patient care do you feel benefit most from in-person visits?
All right. So the first one, if I were a venture capitalist, I would look for folks out in Silicon Valley that are developing gadgets that can plug into your phone, that provide a great way to look in a throat, look in a nose, look in ears, listen to hearts and lungs. So really deliver that exam piece. Ways to get to interconnect imaging centers and hospitals so that you can get your imaging study done at a private place, and a doctor in another state can easily take a look at it. So all the things that are adjuncts to the person-to-person interaction. Healthcare, and good healthcare, is really about human interaction, and it's those relationships that you develop. And so I think you can initiate a relationship, and I think the younger generation, certainly can attest to this. You can initiate a relationship online via video chat and whatnot, but to truly develop that relationship, develop the trust, there has to be a balance between in-person and in virtual care. So surgery, we're never going to be able to do surgery virtually. There may be some, I have some friends that are working on the ability to do robotic surgery around the world. So a surgeon could be at a console in California and operate on a soldier in Afghanistan. But the touch, the exam, still has its import. And then plus the things that we do. I think we will see some infusions move into the home, but surgery, radiation, those procedures are still going to be, facilities based. I've got to have people come to the facility. They just built me this new big cancer center, right? I can't wait to show you guys. So, but I will tell you, I was worried about 6 months ago that we didn't build a big enough building, because we built it for 5 to 10 years of growth. And I started to have some heartburn that I'm going to have to go back to our CEO and be like, that multi-million-dollar thing we have out there, it's not big enough. But I think because of telehealth and the way that we work smarter, we'll be able to, and quite honestly, live in this building and continue to grow in it for more than a decade. And beyond a decade, then I'll be looking at retirement and they're on their own.
Great. I think Ray has a question for you next.
Yeah, I just have a quick question for you. Considering the current climate of the pandemic, what would you say to someone who has found a lump on their body somewhere, something they're not sure about and is concerned? What would you say to them in terms of access at this point in time, if they're scared or of the coronavirus and that kind of thing?
I think they can establish a relationship virtually, but they're going to, and you get that trust. And then, so we've done a lot of work at Ochsner to try to make people feel safe to return. I mean, that's the program, is safe to return, so that, that there's visible evidence of how we're cleaning and everyone's wearing masks, and we're doing everything we can, again, to protect our patients, our team, and the communities. And so, like I said, cancer care didn't stop during coronavirus, but we're going to see, beginning probably in July, an explosion of new diagnoses related to deferred and delayed care. And so, we're trying to get ready for that. We're ready with, extended hours and the willingness to be there and help. But I mean, just because people have been scared, they may have been sitting on something, for a few months. We've got to prove it's safe. And I think at Ochsner, we've done that. And, once you've come in, then we will, evaluate it and get going with whatever needs to happen. But I think for those that have some trepidation about engaging with healthcare, a virtual visit's a nice way to make that connection.
Thank you.
Fantastic. So I think we have one more question. This is from Lindsay. On that note, do you have any projections?
Am I freezing? Who's frozen?
No, I think that was me for a second. So here we go. What made y'all hire a D&I chairman, and what are you trying to work towards? How are you trying to work towards racial equality in healthcare?
That's a great and timely question. I think because we get it. I mean, we're in the communities and we see the need. You can't drive the streets of New Orleans and not see inequity, inequality. And, we recognize that this is our responsibility. We have a diverse, highly skilled, excellent workforce that needs to have a voice, needs to feel like everyone has a voice. And, I think it's probably, we should have done it years ago, but, I'm glad we did it, when we did it. And we want everyone to feel as proud to work at Ochsner as I do. And I want it to be a place where people feel safe, where people feel supported, and can really feel that they are making a difference in other people's lives. Dee.
Hi, I've had the pleasure of working with Deborah Grimes, who's our new Chief Diversity Officer. And as Moore said, for years now, we've been working on diversity issues, but haven't had that Chief Diversity Officer in hand. She came to us from UAB and has a tremendous background. She's already hit the ground running. We serve on our governor, when COVID began going strong in our state, established a COVID equity task force in our state. And one of our researchers, Dr. Ebony Price Haywood, sits on the racial equity subcommittee of that task force, helping to identify how and why COVID has had the disparities it's had in Louisiana. But we know COVID has only shined a spotlight on a situation that's been in place for years. And so some of the things our diversity task force is doing right now is looking at how we partner across the state. We talked earlier about access, And if we keep all the healthcare inside our four walls, that doesn't help people. We have to go out into the communities, find people where they are, and remove barriers that might be in their way of accessing healthcare, whether it's a cancer screening, a COVID test, or just any other basic health screening. So I'm heartened by the work she's doing in terms of our being more outward facing. I think too, we're doing a lot more with our employees. We have, as Dr. Moore said, a diverse and highly skilled workforce, and several years ago created resource groups. Our an ABLE group representing African American employees, OLA group for our Hispanic workers, and it's not just a in other words, I'm in the women's group, but you don't have to be a woman to be in the women's group. There's a veterans group there, and they're bringing up issues that maybe we didn't recognize as an organization about what it means to work at Ochsner, and having people from lots of different parts of the organization have a voice and help build solutions makes richer solutions. So we're doing great work. Keep your eyes on us. I think Deborah is going to do incredible things over the next few years.
Oh gosh, guys, thank you so much. This was so interesting and informative, and we are so grateful for your time this afternoon, giving us a piece of your Saturday. We really appreciate it. So we are going to let you guys go, and coming up next is the second pillar in our three pillars. It's knowledge. Our writers do a wonderful cancer prevention and awareness program, and we would love to show that to you guys now. Dr. Moore and Dee, thank you so much again. We are so happy that you were here today.
Thank you all. This was it's an honor to be a part of it, and good luck, and look forward to seeing you in person.
Yep.
We'll give you a tour next year.
Can't wait.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, so I think we have our video coming up in just a moment, and then at 6 o'clock we will have another
We are
segment.
so excited to be speaking to you today. My name is Katie, and I'm a member of the Texas 4000 2020 team. Now, I'm on the Rockies Route. Texas 4000 has 3 different routes, and they go all over the country. So Rockies goes through the Rocky Mountains. It goes through a ton of beautiful national parks and some really, really great camping spots. Now, unfortunately, this summer, we're not going to be able to bike through all those areas, but we're still so excited to engage with you virtually and share with you some of our program's presentations. So thank you so much for tuning in, and we're really, really excited to connect with you guys. I'd like to share a few reasons why I ride. And the first reason is for my grandfather on my mother's side. My mom and dad both immigrated to America from China in order to pursue their higher education. And when I was about one years old, when I was just born in New York, my mom found out that my grandfather had leukemia, that it had progressed a lot. He was in the hospital. There was basically nothing that they could do. And she flew back. She spent some of his last weeks with him. And then she came back to the US and he passed away, unfortunately. And I never met him, but Texas 4000 has really opened up a dialogue for me and my mom to talk about the immense loss that she feels and the lack of support system that she has being over here by herself with just me, my brother, and my dad, none of her other family. She's also told me that one thing that she really regrets is at that time, they didn't tell my grandfather that he had cancer. And this practice was pretty common in China because at that time, Chinese medicine wasn't very advanced. Cancer treatment wasn't very advanced, and it wasn't advanced around the world either. And the Chinese had a bit of a fatalistic viewpoint on this. So instead of thinking how we're going to fight this with when you get diagnosed, it's more of a thought process of, okay, you've been diagnosed with cancer. Now there's not much you can do. You just have to accept your fate and your eventual death. So they didn't tell him. They never told him. He probably figured it out at some point along the line, but he died without ever formally having been diagnosed. And that is really heartbreaking to me. So I definitely do ride for knowledge as one of the pillars in Texas 4000. Not just knowledge about the disease and about different ways to prevent it, but even just knowledge of your diagnosis, which is something that a lot of us take for granted. I also ride for my uncle, who's currently in China, in Shandong, and he's battling lung cancer. It's pretty scary, especially given, the current restrictions and coronavirus sort of travel restrictions and lockdowns that are going on. It's harder for him to go to Beijing and seek treatment. So that's been something that our family has been dealing with. And lastly, of course, I ride for my teammates. I ride for this wonderful organization. These people have taught me so much about hope, about how to be there for someone, about how to share in others' pain and how to lift other people up. And it just means so much to me to have these people, the support system, who really are fighting every day to spread hope and to carry the stories of others. And that means a lot to me. So I ride for my 2020 team, who I love so, so much. So what I'm going to be talking about is just a general overview of what cancer is. One of Texas 4000's 3 pillars is knowledge, which we hope to share with communities like yours throughout the 70-day journey that we had planned. But before we fight the disease, we want to understand what it is and how it affects us. So essentially, cancer occurs because the cells in your body are always replicating, some more than others for a healthy person. And the process of cell replication is controlled by a bunch of different proteins. However, cancer is essentially uncontrolled cell replication. So a cancerous cell can replicate as much as it wants, and eventually all of these replicated cells can grow into a mass called a tumor. So if this tumor is malignant, it can spread to other parts of your body and grow there. And the problem is that these cancerous cells are going to take up a lot of resources from healthy cells. They can damage healthy tissue, and they can impair normal function. So cancer can be caused by a lot of different factors. There's biological factors such as inherited genetic defects in your skin type, but there's also preventable lifestyle factors such as UV radiation exposure, diet, and smoking. So we're going to be talking about those and how we can lower the risk of cancer.
Hi, my name is Chris. I'm a 2020 Rockies rider, and today I want to talk to you about cancer treatment. So as we all know, cancer can affect various different parts of the bodies. It can affect people in different ways. And because of that, doctors need a variety of different ways to treat cancer. And today I'm going to be talking to you about the main 4 ways to treat cancer. So the first one, if you have a localized tumor that hasn't left outside of its specific growth spot, usually surgery is the best option. A doctor can go in, surgically remove the tumor, and usually that takes care of the cancerous cells in that area. Usually this is followed with radiation or radiotherapy, and that's essentially when a high dose of radiation is blasted on this tumor area. And the goal of this is to kill the tumor cells, effectively reducing the tumor size. However, if the tumor has gone outside of the primary stages, so it's metastasized throughout the body, usually doctors will choose to use chemotherapy. And this is essentially a low dose toxin that spreads throughout your body and kills as many tumor cells as it can throughout your body. And then the fourth and final and newest addition to cancer treatment is immunotherapy. And this is essentially where doctors can train your immune system to attack cancer cells, which is great because it doesn't require any chemicals, radiation, or any other harsh therapies. It's your own body producing its own fight against its own cancer cells. So this is really exciting. And the goal of most of these therapies is to help the patient into a state of remission, where their symptoms are barely visible or diminished to such a point where it doesn't affect their lives anymore. And although remission isn't necessarily a cure, this is the goal for most of these therapies since it helps people return to a state of normalcy. And throughout all of cancer therapeutics, we're seeing so many strides throughout the past years. People are making really exciting advances in research, and we're so excited as a team to see that and to share that with you all. And I guess as a team at large, Texas 4000 is always, striving for a world in which cancer is a curable disease. And then until that happens, we're going to be riding for everybody who's battled this disease, regardless of the outcome.
Hi, my name is Race. I'm going to be talking about prevention and how diet and exercise and self-examinations can help us with that. So self-examinations are one of the most useful tools we have in cancer prevention. For testicle and breast cancer, we have 2 self-examinations that can be really useful. So for both of these examinations should take place about once a month, and it's helpful if it's in the morning, like when we're taking a shower. And for a testicular self-examination, you want to be feeling the testicles for any change in consistency, size, or shape, and feeling for any hardened knots or lumps. And for the breast self-examination, uh, just like we do in the testicle examination, uh, you can do this in the morning while you're showering. You want to feel from the entire breast area all the way up to the armpits, and you're feeling for any change in consistency, size, shape. You're feeling for lumps, anything out of the ordinary that might have changed recently. And then also you can raise your arms and check for any change in coloration or texture, like if there are dimples that haven't been there before. For skin malignancies, skin cancer, or melanoma, we're going to be using the A, B, C, D, E's of testing. So the A is going to be for asymmetry. If you're looking at a mole and you draw a line down the middle and it's even on both sides, then it passes that test. The B is for border. So if the border is uneven or if it's not smooth, then that's typically a sign that the sign of the possibility of cancer. The C is for color, and so a normal mole might just be a single shade of brown, but skin cancer might have multiple shades, or you might see some redness or purple, in which case you should take note of that. The D is for diameter, and so any mole shouldn't be any bigger than the eraser on a pencil. And then the E is for evolving. So if there are any changes in coloration, elevation, texture, if there are new symptoms that arise, like bleeding or itching, then that's something to take notice of. And one important thing to recognize whenever we're using self-examinations are, although these are very useful tools, they're tools that we should only use to prompt ourselves to visit the doctor, because any self-examination isn't necessarily significant of a malignant cancer. And so it's really important that we put into context the information that these self-examinations do provide. And now I want to talk about diet and exercise and how that can contribute to our overall health and in the context of cancer prevention. So healthy eating and engaging in physical activity has been shown to reduce the risk of cancer. And so I want to give you 3 tips on healthy eating that can help us achieve these goals. So the first one is maintaining a healthy weight. This ultimately boils down to calories in and calories out, which means that holding ourselves accountable to the types of foods that we put into our bodies, and also our eating habits. These can have a really big influence on our ability to maintain a healthy weight. The second thing is eating whole foods over processed foods. Whole foods include things like fruits, vegetables, and processed foods include things like lunch meats or other products that typically don't have an expiration date, or you can find it at a gas station. This is really important because the chemicals that can be used in the process of making those processed foods can contribute to certain health risks. And the third thing is we want to be mostly eating our calories, which means that we're mostly drinking water, and we're drinking a lot of it. And this allows us to have a better understanding or a better idea of what calories we're consuming and what nutrients we're getting from our eating habits. And regarding exercise, the American Cancer Society recommends about 150 minutes of moderate exercise or 75 minutes of vigorous exercise spread throughout the week in about at least 3 sessions. And not only does this improve cardiovascular health, but also this can reduce our risk for cancer. And I think that a balance of diet and exercise is really important in maintaining our health, and also looking in the future and preventing cancer or other chronic diseases like heart disease. Thanks.
Among the many risk factors that can increase the risk for cancer, smoking and alcohol addiction are big ones. They could increase the risk of mouth, esophageal, lung, and other cancers. Through my experience in T4K, I realized that one of the pillars that resonated the most with me has been hope. When I was 2 years old, my family moved from France, and my mother had a very hard time integrating to American society. She had no support network and through also a language barrier. And over the years, she developed a drinking problem. My sister and I were too young to realize what was going on when it first happened, but over the years, we realized that she needed our help. Today, my mom is now aware of the issue and she's making steps towards her recovery, and I'm very grateful for everything that she has done up till now. I believe that it was through the strength that we gave her, and especially the belief and the hope that we had in her, that she could have the strength to improve. That is one of the main reasons why I hold T4K so close to my heart, is because of the sharing of our struggles and the hope and the strength that we can give each other. I continue to write for my mother so that she can have a healthy life. I believe that no matter the decisions made, the circumstances, everyone has a right to a cancer-free, healthy life. I write for anybody who is struggling with addiction, and I write for the hope and strength that we can give each other through the sharing of our struggles.
One of the things that Texas 4000 is so excited about is the power of cancer research. We think that cancer research can generate so much hope and knowledge for not only the physicians working on cancer, but also the patients who receive cancer diagnoses. Every year, Texas 4000 funds a great deal of cancer research projects and support services throughout the country. Just here locally in Austin, we funded things like Dell Medical School, UT's Biomedical Engineering Program, and MD Anderson. But we've also provided funding for research institutions and support services throughout the country, especially along the 3 routes that we ride on. And one of the most exciting things about cancer research, especially T4K's involvement in it, is to see the ways that it's already taken root in our community. So UT actually provided the seed funding for Dr. Olivia Eberlin's lab, which developed the mass spectrometry pen right here at UT. So what this pen does is a surgeon can take it in surgery, point it at a patient's tissue, and it'll tell you if it's cancerous or if it's healthy. And this has changed the way in which physicians can treat cancer surgically, because this makes it a lot safer for the patient, because they're not getting their healthy tissue cut, and they're making sure that it's a lot more efficient by just isolating the cancerous tissues and removing those. And this is something that Texas 4000 is so proud to have been a part of. Dr. Eberlin actually won the MacArthur Genius Grant for her work. So this is incredibly exciting work, and it's transforming the ways in which cancer is treated today. Outside of the research that Texas 4000 funds, many of our teammates actually have plans to go into medicine and research and are really excited about the ways that cancer research can transform the lives of patients everywhere. In my own lab, I work with aptamers, which are small molecules that already exist in your body. They're just small pieces of DNA, but can be chemically modified to bind to anything. So currently right now, there's research being done on how to get these aptamers to deliver drugs just to cancer cells. And this is great because it allows chemo treatments not to affect your entire body. Instead, it brings the chemo directly to the cancer cell, killing that and leaving the healthy cells completely unharmed. And outside of my own lab, these developments are happening all over the country in labs everywhere. And it's so exciting to see the ways in which cancer research is already taking off and how fast it's beginning to develop in just the past couple of years. So, even though we aren't able to ride this summer, engage in the communities we wanted to, we're so excited to get out into the world and continue the fight against cancer, beyond our time in T4K.
Thanks again for joining us. Thank you to Dr. Brian Moore and Dee McCloskey from Ochsner Health in New Orleans. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back with our cycling broadcast. See you then.
Good afternoon, everyone. Actually, moving into the evening now. Welcome to the second part of our broadcast following the cancer awareness and prevention talk that we had with the folks from Ochsner. We can't thank Dr. Moore and Dee McCloskey enough for having joined for that hour, but we are now moving into an hour of cycling with the team, and I want to welcome Tony, our writer to help co-host this evening. Hey, Tony, how are you doing? Whoops, Tony, your mic is off. You're going to have to turn your mic on.
Here we go. Hey, Scott.
Hey, Tony.
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm great as well. Why don't you go ahead and introduce the teammates that are going to be on for the live stream tonight?
Yeah, so we have three teammates that will be on our live stream tonight from each route. So first we have Kunal, Austin, and Shreya. So welcome, riders. You can see Shreya's from Rockies. Austin is with our Ozarks route, and then Kunal is from Sierra. So welcome, riders. How are y'all doing?
Doing well.
Really good, thank you.
I'm doing pretty well.
Y'all are starting the cycle. Well, yeah, if the riders would like to give an introduction about themselves, what they have done for Texas 4000, and kind of your studies, and what you do at the University of Texas.
Kunal, why don't we get started with you?
Okay, so I'm Kunal. I'm part of the Sierra route. I just graduated with a major in civil engineering. And in T4K, I was more involved with the fitness portion. I was one of the ride leads, but I'm really happy with what we're able to do as a team. So
that's great. Shreya, you want to go next?
Yeah, my name is Shreya. I'm on the Rockies Route, and I'm going to be a senior this year studying neuroscience and government. On the team, I was a tribute coordinator last summer, so I planned the tribute gala event, and then this year I was a travel coordinator. So I reached out to hosts and routed days for the summer ride.
And hi, my name is Austin. I'm a rising senior at UT studying chemistry and geology. In T4K, I was on the gears committee. I was a mechanic for Ozarks, and I am on the programs committee.
That's great to hear from all you. And Tony, I think you have some teammates that are also cycling on Zoom. Is that right?
Yes, we do. We have a few of our teammates joining us this evening. And so we're going to pull them in right here.
Look at that. A lot of people on bikes. We certainly invite the community to join you guys every day for the broadcast and cycle along as the live stream goes on. And remind everybody you can make your comments and ask questions, ride dedications to the team tonight. Make that on Facebook Live or on YouTube Live. Tony, you want to start off tonight and start with a round of questions for your teammates?
Yes, I can certainly do that. How are y'all doing? Ready to bike?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, so like Scott said, I'm going to be your co-host and ask some of the riders some questions kind of about their time with Texas 4000 the past almost 2 years now. But feel free to put your ride dedications, your questions on Facebook comments and YouTube comments live, and the writers will be able to answer those as well. Yeah, let's start with some overview for those who have watched. Maybe our new viewers who aren't familiar with our program. Would any of our writers like to ask how the leadership development program at Texas 4000 is, how it's structured, and kind of what our mission is? Austin, would you like to go first?
Sure thing. So with Texas 4000, our goal is to spread hope, knowledge, and charity across the U.S. and Canada, wherever our routes take us. And in this virtual phase, after the era of COVID, we have been trying to integrate more of a a live stream approach to reaching out to people, and it's actually been enabling us to reach out to people that we've never been able to interact with in person before, and so that's been a really cool side effect. Anything else?
No, that's great. Shreya, Kunal, would one of you like to go?
I guess my experience in past, we've only been doing this for a week so far, but it's been great to meet the hosts that we would have met this summer and talk to the patients that we usually bring out to. So far it's been a wonderful experience and definitely made staying at home more bearable.
Fantastic. Kunal, would you like to tell the viewer something important you've learned as a leader, or how you've grown personally in the Texas 4000 journey?
Yeah, so I've learned a lot about myself through Texas 4000. Like first, in terms of like what I was able to do, like whenever I joined Texas 4000, never be able to think I'd be able to push myself so much, be able to bike like 80, 100 miles and stuff like that. But so I definitely learned a lot about myself, learned how to push myself and like be able to do things I would never expect that I'd be able to do. But I was also able to make super important connections, meet with people in the cancer community, and like meet people who made like such a big difference on like the world around us. So it's definitely very useful and very important.
Definitely. Yeah. I think for me, yeah, learning the stuff I've learned as a leader, it's, how to work with a large team. There's 80 of us, we're all working towards one mission, one goal, but we all have our own aspects to work on. There's several different committees, there's different routes. We all have our own set of challenges and problems that are unique to what we go through as routes and our separate tasks. So it's working with all these different people and the roles together, to uphold the same mission in the end.
Yeah, definitely.
Tell me, I know you just expanded on that. You serve in a leadership role on your team, which is really important and causes you to interact with everyone all the time because you're leading volunteerism. So if you could just talk about that, how that works, given that you interact with so many community organizations and then coordinate all of your teammates, so people can understand a little bit about, wow, that is a large amount of work that you're undertaking.
Yeah, so we advertise at Texas 4000. It is a student development leadership program, and it's led by students. We have our staff and our board, but a lot of the day-to-day stuff is organized and headed on by the students and the team themselves. And that comes down to, a lot of different logistics. And so in my case, with volunteering, I wanted to make sure, my role is to make sure that all the riders are fulfilling their volunteer requirement in order to go on the summer ride. So each rider has to volunteer 50 hours in the Austin community over the 3 semesters of the program. And so our first onboarding semester, riders are required to do 25 hours. So it's a lot of time to volunteer as a team in our community. So there's a lot of logistics and planning that goes on behind that. Luckily, Texas 4000 has really grown some great relationships with organizations in the Austin area. So, we volunteer with a lot of the same organizations year after year, those being Austin Marathon, Be the Match, Bell Survivors Challenge, Livestrong Challenge. So, these organizations depend on us and we depend on them, and it's a great relationship. So, my job is to make sure that we continue those relationships and we do the good in the community that we've set out to do. Riders get to be introduced to these new organizations that perhaps they haven't volunteered for yet, and do the work in the community. And so, there's a lot of logistics that go behind that. So basically, I coordinate directly with these organizations and their volunteer managers. And so I decide which events we would like to take on. They change year to year slightly, but there's, like I said, there's many events that we do year after year. One of the big ones is Austin Marathon. So we do a whole rest stop of about 100 volunteers from Texas 4000. So we combine both the onboarding team and the Ride Year team. So, this past February, our 2020 team, along with the new 2021 riders, volunteered together at the rest stop. And so we have our own rest stop at mile 7, where we have noon and water that we're handing out to the runners, and even a lot of our own riders run in the Austin Marathon. And so Texas 4000 has a team of volunteers that run and fundraise for our organization through that. So we rely heavily on the Austin Marathon as a partner organization. So there's a lot of logistics that go behind that, carpooling all the volunteers to events, making sure they have their shifts assigned, and they get their volunteer shirts and everything. So there's quite a bit of work that goes behind the scenes, but it's worth it. And so, that's just the volunteering aspect. Fundraising has their own logistics to take on day to day. And so I'm really proud of my teammates and for the program for essentially giving an opportunity to these students to be leaders and take on, such important roles in the community.
That's great. And Austin, I know there's other requirements. Tony talked about the 50 hours to volunteer in the community, but can you tell a little bit about what the others are?
Right, so we have 2 other requirements for T4K. So the one that we want to emphasize going in is the fundraising. You're expected to raise $1 per mile ridden. And so by the spring of your year that you're about to depart, you would have raised around $4,500. And then on top of that, we don't want to leave without a lot of hours and a lot of miles behind your bike. So you're expected to bike 2,000 training miles as well.
So how many miles have you biked in training, and what kind of is your longest ride so far?
Let's see, my longest ride so far will have been still our Buc-ee's ride back before spring break. A great experience, fun ride. And as of right now, I believe I'm pushing, it's hard to tell with the trainer and off the trainer, but somewhere around 1,500 miles. So it's been a great experience, and I really enjoyed every bit of it.
That is a lot of miles.
Yes, I feel them.
Fantastic. So, our mission is to uphold and the fight against cancer and develop student leaders. So, are any of y'all, our writers here today, are any of y'all going into public health or medicine at all to potentially carry on this mission, beyond your time with Texas 4000?
I'm actually applying to medical school right now, so hopefully. But I've wanted to be a doctor for a really long time, and being in T4K has taught me a lot of things that I'm sure are so important in the medical field. Just unconditional compassion really is a big thing, especially on the bike. But when people are so vulnerable in work, it's important to just accept instantly and just provide comfort with no judgment. And as you can tell, I'm really exhausted already. But that's really pushed me towards continuing to apply in the cycle.
Thanks for sharing that, Shreya. Kunal, can you maybe tell us a little bit about, I know a lot went into the decision-making for not doing the physical ride and then coming to the conclusion to do the virtual ride. And can you tell me just a little bit about what it means to your team, why you chose to do the virtual ride, and what and how that for you is important in carrying on our mission?
Yeah, so with everything going on right now, it was really difficult to be able to do the 70-day ride, especially with like all the risk of infection. Like if somebody on the team would happen to get infected, it could cause like a lot of issues, like transmitting the virus. But the virtual ride still gives us it's like a way to still spread the mission of hope, knowledge, and charity. I think when people see that like we're still so focused on the mission, we're still willing to bike, even if it's like within our homes, is really inspiring to other people. And we're still able to do as much as we can with like programs and be able to like pre-record our programs and send it to hosts and other hospitals and still like engage the community as much as possible. It's still like really important to spread the mission as much as possible, even given the circumstances that we have.
I couldn't agree more with that. And I'm so, again, as I keep saying, so proud of all of you. I know how much it means. This is the first time we've not had a team physically ride from Austin to Anchorage, but even in that disappointment, for you to all remember the mission and that cancer doesn't stop. So you don't want to stop either, and helping to keep serving communities and people everywhere. I'm just so proud of all of you.
Thank you.
Proud of this team. We have a question from Texas 4000. What is the difference between the onboarding team and the ride year team? Would anyone like to take this one?
Yeah, so the onboarding team is the team that just gets into Texas 4000. So they would be the team that would be biking in the summer of 2021. So you apply to Texas 4000 like around 2 years beforehand. And the first semester is your onboarding semester. So in that semester, you focus mostly on like volunteering and fundraising, and your fitness activities is more like fitness to get into shape, because you don't officially get your bikes until like your second semester in T4K. So it's like a way to get used to the organization. You have some requirements you have to fulfill. You have to like get 25 hours of volunteering in, and you still have to like raise $2,000 before like September, I believe. But it's like it's a long process to like be able to bike from Austin to Alaska. So like your onboard semester is your first semester to help you like get used to it and like start your journey in that process.
Looks like we have a comment from Cassie Davis, and Cassie's actually one of our alumni. Definitely appreciate the comment, and we just talked with Ochsner a little while ago. It's so great to hear that a family member was treated there so successfully. So Austin, how about, would you share, we've got 3 routes on the team, and I know for everybody, they might not know what the 3 routes represent and where they go and even what route you're on. So if you want to share that, that'd be great.
Absolutely. So I guess I'll go left to right. So first we have the Sierra route that goes around the desert Southwest and up the West Coast. That's the team that you see going through. This year was going to be LA and up the coast to Vancouver and a lot of those cities. And then we have another team, Rockies, which, as the name implies, crosses the Rocky Mountains right over the Continental Divide. And then we have my team, the Ozarks. And when you look at the Ozarks, you might think that we're going the wrong way at first, because we start heading east towards places like Ochsner, and this year was planned towards Atlanta as far as that. So we go, curve around, and then make our way up through Canadian provinces towards our team's convergence on day 60 in Alaska.
And also, can you just tell a little bit about your route, the Ozarks route? It wasn't one of the first 2 routes that was added, and do you know the reason why it was added?
Right, so Ozarks was added about 10 years after the organization came into existence, and the goal with Ozarks was to be able to access communities that were traditionally underserved in the United States. There's an area of the United States that doesn't get as much service that's known as the Cancer Belt, which is unfortunate because they deserve as many resources and privileges as everyone else in the U.S. deserves. So our team's goal was to hit that area of the country and give programs and give grants whenever we could. And I'm just really proud of that. Really proud of the fact that someone thought of that as a need that we needed to hit in the U.S. And I'm proud to call that my route.
Thanks for sharing.
So like you mentioned earlier, Austin, and there's a lot of miles that we have to train in order to go on the summer ride. Almost 2,000 is a requirement. So some of our viewers might be asking, how do we train 2,000 miles before the summer ride? Where are we doing these rides? How are they? How long do they get? Let's start with Kunal. Would you like to explain kind of how our training works, where we ride and how long we ride for, how often we ride?
Yeah, so whenever you originally joined T4K, you don't have a bike, so your initial training is more like running and stuff like that. Before you get your bike, you have to pass like a 5K test. So you start getting like your fitness in at that time, but once you get your bike, we bike around like the Austin area, all the way from like our first ride of like Skills Clinic, which is like a 13-mile shoal loop, all the way to like a 100-mile century test. So they're all around Austin. By the time we finished, we ended up doing the Buc-ee's ride, which we biked to the Buc-ee's and Bastrop and back, which ended up being 80 miles. But even in like the ride we have in Austin, we're still seeing like a lot of support. One of them that like really stood out to me was we did like a Pflugerville ride, which is like a 50-mile ride on like a Sunday. And like whenever we're probably like 35 miles in, we saw like one guy who like opened his window, was like, "Oh, Texas 4000," started cheering for us. But then like a mile later, he pulled over his car and like set up an entire cheering station for us. So it was really like nice to see all the support that you could get on like these rides.
Definitely, that's great. Yeah, and Shreya, would you like to share with the audience what cities we go to outside of Austin, where we bike to, and how far?
Yeah, so each Saturday we add new routes, basically. So one of the shorter ones was Round Rock Donuts. So we biked out to Round Rock and back, which is 40 miles. I think the next couple were, Pflugerville was the next one, and that's a 50-mile ride. And that's out to the Pflugerville Lake and back. And then Rockies was the last one, and that was out to San Marcos, and that was 80 miles.
Yeah, so we go pretty far outside of Austin and back. So we got to make sure we have all of our equipment and food and everything. So would y'all like to explain how we kind of do those long Saturday rides? Who helps us out? How do we stay hydrated? How do we get our lunches in during those long Saturday rides?
Yeah, so for each Saturday ride, we always have people on SAG, which is support and gear, to help us out. So usually like 2 or 3 cars of SAG that will like go like kind of close by to like make sure everything's going okay. And they also set up rest stops, and a lot of our sponsors like donate food and like drinks and stuff for the rest stops. That can help a lot. Like one of the big sponsors we have is Cliff, and Cliff donates like bars and boxless. It can really help with like the long rides. Like I know one of their products, the salted watermelon blocks, like they taste like candy, but they also have like a lot of extra salt to help like replenish your electrolytes and stuff during these like long rides. And also like the bars give you like a lot of carbs, but our SAG team like sets up these rest stops for us, like so that we don't like bonk on the rides, and to like help us get through. And then if there's any like big problems, like if somebody's tire goes out or something, there's always like a SAG vehicle to help them like put in a new tire or stuff like that.
Thanks for sharing that, Kunal. I think it's time, Tony, let's check in with your teammates who are over on Zoom and see the group there. Again, today, this Saturday, is everyone on the team, all 3 routes represented, Ozarks, Rockies, and Sierra. Got a lot of people cycling today, and we certainly invite the community to join the riders every day. You know, tune in for the hour-long broadcast, hop on your trainer, and join the riders and cycle indoors with them. You can also cycle safely outdoors. We've got standards for that we share on our social media stream that you can take and follow. That's what our riders are following when they go outdoors. And if you do that, we ask you to share on social media your support for the riders. If you're safely cycling outdoors, use our hashtags T4K Rides On, or as you're doing, hashtag Ride with T4K. Tony, so, you know, your teammates are all cycling there, and I want to ask you a question now, just why they continue to do that. what is it that kind of goes into a Saturday ride? Because you all, I think a lot of people don't realize this as college students, and I can remember back, it's been a while, but Saturdays were really important. Friday nights were really important as well. And you're getting up at, if you can tell, like what time in the morning, and the fact that you're giving up every Saturday once you get your bike to go on team rides, and what goes into just planning all of that.
Yes, Scott, there's quite a few aspects that go into planning Saturday rides, and there's quite a few sacrifices we have to make, to participate in these Saturday rides and make sure we're training enough for the summer rides. So we have under our fitness and safety chair, which kind of oversees all of our training for the program, we have a Saturday ride coordinator. So that was Simon Burke for our team. So shout out to Simon. So his job was to essentially plan these Saturday rides. So he kind of set up what routes we would be doing. We group and ride groups. We ride in smaller groups. We don't want to ride in too big of a group because that can be dangerous. So our ride groups are about 3 to 6 riders. And so, those need to be grouped, and they're changed every week. So we have a chance to ride with new people, new teammates, and cheer on, new teammates that we perhaps haven't ridden with before. And so Simon is in charge of that. He's making sure that, our support and gear is set up for each weekend. We have rest stops at the appropriate miles, so we can have water and food, when we need it most. And so, there's a lot of logistics that go into planning that. And, we start off every Saturday ride with our ride dedications at 6:45 a.m., so quite early. It is hard to get up that early in the morning. Most college students are not used to getting up early on a Saturday. We usually sleep in. So that's a big adjustment when we join Texas 4000. And so we do our ride dedications, maybe 15, maybe 30 minutes long. And then we get rolling, and the first group rolls out, and we space them out from there. And then, we have our sport and gear roll out later and set up the rest stops as our riders go along the route. So it is a sacrifice to essentially dedicate every Saturday, starting in October all the way up through May, essentially setting the whole day aside for riding. It is a lot, but it's a commitment we've made to fight cancer. So we're going to do it.
Well, thanks for sharing that. I think that's the reason I talk to so many people about why I think you are all, once you graduate, are a great asset as an employee to any company that you go work for, because I know you learn in Texas 4000 really how to project management, how to manage a bunch of different projects going on, from your Saturday ride to media and PR to volunteerism, all these things, and how they're interconnected together with 80-something people, close to getting them all coordinated and being able to work together. It starts out slowly, and as you said before, and you learn what you need to do and fine-tune those processes and procedures to make it all work. But then once you've gone through this program from 18 months, I feel like you're some of the best people out there to make things happen. And I'm just, I keep touting that to all the companies we talk with.
Yes, there's a lot going on, a lot that we learn. We're very good at Slack. We have quite a few Slack channels to organize all of our efforts. There might be 20 or 30 of them going on, but yeah, that's very true.
Well, do you want to ask a question to your teammates here now?
Yes, we'll continue our questions. And like we said earlier, feel free, if you have any questions, our viewers, go ahead and put them in the Facebook or live comments below. Or if you have ride dedications, we had our program before this, so we weren't able to do live ride dedications before, but you can put them in the comments now, and we'll ride for those people. So let's see. And let's go around maybe to hear from all three of y'all. When you joined Texas 4000, what was, I'm sure there was a lot of excitement, maybe some anxieties, a bit nervous of, what you got yourself into. Maybe share a little bit of your feelings and the first things you thought about, maybe the first things you were excited to do when you joined Texas 4000, what you were feeling. Shreya, would you like to start first?
Sure. I was super nervous when I joined Texas 4000 at the very beginning. I have joined a lot of orgs at UT, and I've loved all of them, but never really felt like completely at home. So I really wanted T4K to be a positive experience for me. And I think most of my nervous energy was from thinking that it might not work out. But that was quickly proven wrong. So I have had a wonderful experience since every Monday meeting, every meeting with my travel committee every week suddenly became like a fun hour-long activity. Just spending time with people that are really considerate and kind has been wonderful for the past 2 years. So yes, I was super nervous, mostly about the social aspect of it, but it's been wonderful.
Thanks for sharing, Shreya. Yeah, it's those small things that are really enjoyable that I didn't think I'd be looking forward to. When I first joined, it was kind of like, oh, I can't wait to fundraise a lot of money for cancer research. We're going to do this. We're going to bike. It's going to be fun. But then you get into the program and you start working, towards those efforts, and you're doing the day-to-day things, and you find those just as enjoyable. Meeting with your teammates, doing the tasks you need to get done to uphold the mission. So yeah, those are just as important as the events that we do. Austin, would you like to share?
Yeah, sure. So going into T4K, I had experience with sacrificing every Saturday because I spent the first 2 years of college in the marching band. And so going into it, I thought that wouldn't be as big of a change as it ended up being, but it requires a lot out of you, and you get out of it what you put into it. And I noticed very quickly that the things that I thought that I would enjoy the most, like you said, like the fundraising or the biking, ended up being secondary almost to the memories I got to make with my teammates. I distinctly remember my first volunteering event, talking with you, Tony, and with a bunch of others, and it was from those moments like those that I realized that being a team on Texas 4000 meant a whole lot more than just getting on a bike and biking as long as we had planned to. So it was really the sense of community, I think, that really hit me when I first joined T4K.
And Jody says, before we move on to Kunal, Jody says, do y'all have any pre-ride rituals?
I believe that we just we get around and we do our ride dedications. That's a very important part of every morning because, again, like Tony said, waking up at sometimes before 6 to get to our morning rides, it really takes a lot out of you. And going to those ride dedications and standing in a circle and holding hands or putting your arms around the people that you became friends with over the course of a year and a half, it really gets your mind in gear, so to speak, and it really drives home the focus that will carry you out through the rest of your day.
Definitely. And Kunal, would you like to talk about kind of what your feelings were when you first joined Texas 4000, what you were looking forward to?
Yeah, so when I first joined T4K, I was really nervous. I was a little overwhelmed, seeing 100 different people on the picnic thing we had when everyone first joined. But the more I was in T4K, the more I got to know everyone, and it was a lot easier. And it was also a big adjustment. I remember the first volunteering event, I had to wake up at 6 a.m. and that was unheard of me to do something like that. But the more I went to the meetings, heard people's wire rides, the more I got to love the organization that I was a part of, and I was able to make such important memories that I'll probably never forget. So.
Thanks for sharing that, Kunal. And Tony, I'm going to ask you a question since you asked all of them one, but it's a follow-up to this. As someone who's in a leadership position, it's very different to be able to build relationships as friends, as you're all talking about there, but to also have to lead friends. And we talk about this with all of you that are in leadership. that is, T4K provides you a unique opportunity as a leader, somewhat different than maybe you go into the corporate world. You do become friends with your coworkers, but probably not to the level that you do with 70 to 80 other people like you do in T4K. And so I'm wondering if you can just explain kind of what are some of the things that go into being able to lead friends and how you approach it.
Definitely. It is an interesting dynamic. It's one I thought about before. It's one a lot of people on leadership think about. It is, being on leadership is very time consuming, since this effort, our summer ride, many aspects of it, it's all student led and organized. So there's a lot of work for our student leaders to be doing. And so in order to do that, we oversee committees that are doing work. And so it's on our responsibility to make sure that our tasks are being complete day to day, and that we're working towards everything we need to be doing before the summer ride. Continuing to uphold the mission and our partnerships, and fundraising, and making sure that everyone's staying on top of their volunteering. And so it can become more difficult to have those hard conversations with your teammates, because they're your friends. You're doing this with your peers, really. So you're trying to lead your peers, and so there is kind of an interesting dynamic there sometimes. In Texas 4000, you can be any year in the program. So we have seniors and freshmen both in the same team. So, and even grad students as well. So that's kind of an interesting dynamic, because some of our leadership positions may be taken on by freshmen, and some of them may be taken on by grad students. And so it does create an interesting dynamic, and one that you might not see in traditional workforce. And so that is kind of the challenge that we have to navigate. Me personally, it was hard sometimes to have those conversations with my peers who are my friends, telling them they do need to make sure they complete their hours this semester, having meetings with them to make sure they're doing okay in all aspects of T4K. So it is difficult, and there's a lot of responsibility on leadership, so they're not always able to kind of enjoy the minute things, for volunteering events or whatnot. They're in charge of organizing it, so they have a lot of responsibility on their shoulders. And so there's a different dynamic between how leadership processes the times that we have with our teammates, and and some of the other writers.
Thanks for sharing that. And I think that's important for people to understand that even within, as everyone on the team is giving up Saturday mornings, leadership gives up the opportunity to maybe interact and do things in a much more fun, social way with your teammate, your peer. For you, you're in charge of all the volunteer activities, so you're interacting with people from all these orgs who you have a responsibility to deliver for their fundraising event, for whatever our team may be volunteering for. And that's just, I know it has to be a tremendous pressure at times to make sure things go well. And so I definitely applaud everyone on leadership for being willing to giving up a little bit of the personal fun to be able to provide your teammates leadership and make sure things go well and represent the organization. So I just want to say thank you for that as well.
Yeah, thanks, Scott, and thanks to all of our other leaders. It's so worth it, though. It's someone has to step up and take on the responsibility, and every teammate takes on responsibility in some way on the team. We're all student leaders, and so it's totally worth it in the end. We're doing some great work.
Well, I think you should ask your teammates a fun question. Let's talk about something fun.
Yeah, let's see. So we asked this in the morning ride. We can ask it again and see if the scales tip this time. But we had a contest of best rest stop, and we said Rockies, Round Rock Donuts, or Buc-ee's gas station convenience place. For those outside of Texas that are familiar with Buc-ee's, it's essentially a really large gas station with pretty much anything you can think of. So let's start off here and see what the favorite is. Kunal?
I like the Buc-ee's one a lot better because from Buc-ee's, like my ride group bought like a huge like bag of like gummy bears to help us fuel us the rest of the ride, and you can't buy stuff like that at Round Rock. And if we didn't have the gummy bears, like I'm not sure it would actually make it through Buc-ee's. So I'm honestly like that one was definitely like a lot better for me.
I think I'll have to agree with you there. Austin? Yeah, I agree. Buc-ee's versus Round Rock Part 2. All right, Austin, what's your take?
Let's see. Oh man, I think I might have to go with Round Rock Donuts on that one because that was my first real visit to Round Rock Donuts, and being able to see. I mean, the donuts are fantastic, but going in there and seeing the Texas-sized donut that's about as big as a basketball hoop, and then jokingly with friends saying, "What if we bought that?" Because we were very tired and very hungry at that midway point. And then we did end up buying it, and we demolished it. And it was a really memorable time in our training process. So I'm going to go with that for the memorability of it.
That's great. What's your take?
I have to agree. I think Round Rock is just so dependable, and the staff is so nice, and they recognize us every time, which is awesome. I think Rockies is just too crowded and stressful, but everyone at Round Rock is super sweet and always makes us feel like, you know, they always have like, I don't know, they just recognize us and are happy to see us every time. So Round Rock.
They're very nice. They always offer to give us, fill up our water bottles for free. Sometimes they give our orders for free. They're very friendly, and they know the Texas 4000 team very well. So I think this is a Round Rock winner, and I believe that's what it was this morning as well. So
I was pretty sure that was going to be the answer. For just hearing you guys every time you stop by the office and talk about a Saturday ride to Round Rock. Well, let's switch gears here and let's talk to everybody individually about, what do you feel is the most important thing about the leadership program and also supporting the cancer community? I mean, I think there's two things there. One, I think the leadership program applies to you and what you feel is important that you've learned. And certainly what we're doing in the cancer community as an organization is vast. From what you do as a team to what we do with the funds that you raise. So if everybody wants to kind of speak to those two things. And we'll start with Kunal.
So in terms of what I learned in the leadership perspective, I definitely learned like a lot about myself individually. And I definitely feel like I became a lot of a better person since joining Texas 4000. And I learned a lot about myself, and like I learned a lot about being a leader in general. But in terms of like the mission and what T4K does, I think the biggest thing that stood out to me was like how T4K is able to bring out hope to all these different communities. Like I know in like a lot of the volunteer events we went to, there's definitely like a big emphasis on like interacting with the people. Like one of the ones that stood out to me was the Purple Stride 5K. Like I definitely met a lot of people who were impacted by cancer there, and being able to like hear their stories and being able to share your own was definitely like a big part of T4K's mission, and being able to like spread the mission was definitely very important.
Thanks for sharing that. Austin, how about you?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go ahead and second hope there. That's the thing that really I think takes people by surprise and really sticks with people the longest. When I think about Texas 4000. Yes, the fundraising is extremely important to the team, and we're so grateful for all the donors and everyone that we reach out to who surprises us with a $20 bill and makes it possible for us to even do this and give out the grants that we do. But at the end of the day, the money gets spent, and I think the hope really remains with people long after we're gone. And that's the part I'm most glad about, that we get to do these live streams and that we get to interact with the hosts. It's a really humbling and touching experience, and I think the hope is really what does it for me.
Thanks. Shreya?
In terms of leadership experience, I've learned a lot about like reciprocity in leadership. If you want your teammates to do what you're asking, you have to set a good example in terms of everything else that's asked of you. So I've only held like one actual like big leadership position, and that was doing tribute gala coordinating. But I had to ask all my teammates to find donations for the gala, and I think I learned a lot about like respecting my other leaders and doing what they were asking of me, just because I know how much effort and time a leadership position takes. And then in terms of the cancer community, I've really learned about just how fast like treatment is evolving. A lot of Monday meetings had special guests come through, whether it be the Max or Del Med came through once. But there was one program that I really stuck with me. And we talked about just like the support system that cancer patients are starting to use at a specific hospital. And it was a totally personalized approach to medicine. And it talked about like a relationship between like a dietitian and the oncologist and like mental health specialist. And it really just taught me about like how medicine is turning into super personalized and individualized systems, which gives me a lot of hope for the future. Thank you.
Well, thanks for sharing that. And I think that last part goes to just the talk we had the hour before, with actually hearing from a cancer doctor at Ochsner and knowing, how our funds are touching people's lives and making change is really, really important. It's not a grant and a dollar number to some unknown project somewhere. We know the people's lives that are being touched. We're making a change in communities across the 3 routes you ride on. Tony, I'm going to turn it over to you. I know we're getting close to the end.
Yes, we have just about 4 or 5 minutes left. And so we're going to check in with our riders on the Zoom call right now. And there they go. I'm sure they are very pleased to be biking indoors today. It's getting pretty hot out there. I think today it almost, was in the high 90s. So I'm sure they're probably not sweating as much indoors as they would be outdoors right now.
I see them hydrating though.
Yeah.
Well, I know we're coming up on the end here. I want to just remind everybody, if you've enjoyed the last 2 hours, or if you just joined us for the cycling part for this last hour and want to support these wonderful young women and men as part of the Texas 4000 2020 team, you can go to texas4000.org to make a donation. You can go there to make a ride dedication if you're not able to join for one of our broadcasts during the ride dedication portion. Certainly, you can make that at texas4000.org as well. We want to thank everybody who's continued to tune in and support the team as they have started this 2020 summer virtual ride and engaging people across the world. We've had people watching from all places, and it's just great to be able to see, again, the team take this opportunity and turn it into an opportunity, I should say. Take what they've been presented and change it and be able to touch more lives than we've ever touched before. So again, thanks, Tony. Thanks to your teammates.
Yeah, of course. Glad we could do this. Do the writers have anything else they'd like to add before we wrap up here in a couple minutes? Any ride dedications for today or thoughts you'd like to give across to our viewers?
I just want to say that I'm so grateful for everyone that leaves comments and encourages us. It means the world. The summit is so different than what we expected, but we made the most of it, and we couldn't have done it without everyone in the people of the community. So thank you so much.
Definitely, the comments and the support have been incredible, and they're really motivating a lot of these writers to keep going. So we appreciate it very much. And with that, our writers are going to finish into 7 p.m. if you would like Scott said, if you're pleased with the riders cycling tonight, you can go to texas4000.org to donate. If you would also, if you're cycling alongside us and you want to match with us and get a cool Texas 4000 jersey, you can go to texas4000.org, go to our merchandise shop, and you can purchase a jersey, just like ours, 2020 team jersey.
Yeah, that's the way. Show it off, Austin. Tony, I want to say thank you for co-hosting this evening with me. And I, again, applaud all of you. Our next broadcast is when? Tomorrow morning?
Yes. Tomorrow morning, we'll have our ride dedications at 7:30, and the Sierra route will be cycling at 8 a.m.
Well, thank you to everybody again for joining us. We appreciate it, and we're going to sign off for this evening, and we hope to see you back tomorrow morning. Thank you, riders.
Thank you.